Hey everyone. Um, I had this uh, really good Quaker meeting tonight. It was, I think, the best one I've ever been to. And in part, I find it exceptional because it was Wednesday night. And often on Wednesday nights, there's only two, three, or four of us in person. And maybe another 6 to 10 on Zoom projected onto the wall. And more often than not, on Wednesday nights, it's totally silent. Like, no one speaks. We sit together for 45 minutes. And tonight, that wasn't the case. There were five of us in person, so more than usual. And the first person got up and spoke, and I was excited. I love when people speak on Wednesdays, it's not too common. And she shared this really lovely message about death and her grandchildren and kind of the mysteries of the universe and the comfort, the way she finds comfort in death after someone passes. And she sat down, and it was just really a lovely message. And then maybe 10 minutes later, another person stood up, and I was like, whoa, two people speaking. I don't know if two people have ever spoken on a Wednesday night. And often when there are multiple messages in a row, they kind of build on each other. So I feel like they, not always, but regularly, they get better each time. Or that might not be entirely right, but you kind of get the point. They grow. So anyway, the next person speaks, and they also speak about like death and children and like rebirth and the cycles of life and how Quakers think about death. And it was just a really lovely message too. And he sat down, and another 5 minutes goes by, and then a third person starts speaking, and I was like, wow, this is uncharted territory. And the third person starts saying, friends, 70 minutes ago, I was with my neighbor when she passed away. And immediately I got chills because I knew that those first two messages, they came about because he had just had that experience. And it was like one of those moments when it was just so clear how connected we are and how much our inner worlds are woven together. And yeah, he offered his reflections on what he experienced just 70 minutes prior when he was with his neighbor as she passed. And then he left, and he thought, well, you know what? I'll go to my Quaker meeting. And he joined us through Zoom, so he wasn't in the room with us. But I immediately got chills when he was speaking, and I was just crying. Like, the beauty of it was so profound. And after he spoke, I was thinking about my grandmother, and I was even before he spoke, I was contemplating speaking a message myself. But it felt like it was more for me than the group. But I was thinking about my grandmother and how she's more alive with me than ever. Like, I feel her aliveness in a way that feels more real than when she was alive. And so I was contemplating that, and then he spoke, and his message connected me. I want to say it connected me to like the spirit, connected me to myself so deeply. And I was sitting with my thoughts of my gram more, and I just started crying. I had this shift inside, and it's going to be very hard for me to explain. But I had a realization that, like, when she died and I was like 11 or 12 years old, um, my spirit was like 11 or 12 years old. And whenever I think of her as being dead, I'm always seeing it through like the 12 year old version of me. Like, it's like my connection with her was frozen in time at that age. And the shift that occurred in the meeting tonight was suddenly I was at her funeral again, but I wasn't there as an 11 or 12-year-old. I was there as me being 41 years old. And I got to be with my Graham's body and be at the funeral as my adult self and see it from my adult perspective. And I was crying seeing this vision, and there was an even deeper shift that occurred where I realized this is where it gets very metaphysical and hard to explain. But I realized that like my 41-year-old spirit and her spirit met for the first time. Like I had this sense that like my grandmother saw me as a 41-year-old man, which of course she never saw in her life, but it was just like this knowing. Like it was so beautiful. I I feel even I feel so close with her, and I feel like she's so alive in me. And tonight, like it feels more close, more alive. I feel like, yeah, I feel like it's so weird. I feel like I got to know her or see her as a 41-year-old. Like there's no sense of past tense with my grandmother anymore. Like I couldn't, yeah, I can't word it in a different way. Like the sense of aliveness is, I've felt the aliveness grow over the years, and it's like more alive than ever. It's like it's so wild. Like yeah. Anyway, it was a really really good meeting. Yeah, I cried, and it was just lovely. Like I often the Wednesday night meetings feel like practice for me because we sit silently. So it's like the night where I practice different ways of sitting silently, and I don't always have hope that it'll be like so profound. And tonight, even though we were small, yeah, it was the best meeting I've ever been to. All right, thank you for thank you for listening.